Earlier, you could speak about the notion of strategic altruism, that you could afford to be generous with others. But today there is no room left. And so basically you have to sharply look out for your own interests.
While the Indian government says exactly what you're saying, that we will look out for our self-interest and we'll partner with anybody who helps India.
United States is basically is the primary tiger in this international jungle, and all the other countries are running scared because of this. And so you have even China playing it very cautiously to many of the Trump provocations. All his claims about Operation Sindoor and his tariffs on India, his threatened additional tariffs. You see, in Trump's calculation, India doesn't really count for much. Our domestic political culture has reached a point where freebies have become more important than anything. So where is the investable money? Our democracy is functioning as what Modi himself used to talk about, Revdi. You see, now Revdi has become the currency of Indian politics.
Hello and welcome to this special discussion on the big disruptions in global geopolitics and geo-economics that we are already witnessing in 2026. So today we have with us a very eminent writer, journalist, author, and a former security advisor to the UPA government. He was a member of the National Security Advisory Board. Manoj Joshi, who is currently also a distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Incidentally, Manoj also writes regularly for The Wire. He's been a regular contributor. So we have invited Manoj to understand what exactly is going on in global geopolitics and geoeconomics, especially in light of the recent unilateral illegal actions by Trump against Venezuela, against Iran, against Iran's trading partners, which includes India. So let's understand, where is this headed in 2026, and how is India to position itself in the emerging scenario? So welcome to our show, Manoj Joshi. So let me, Manoj, ask you a framing question. Early last year, at the Munich Security Conference, sometime in February, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, he responded to in a panel discussion. He was responding to another panelist, a European diplomat, who said that if there are no basic rules governing international affairs, then we would have the law of the jungle. So in response to that, our Minister Jaishankar, he said that he was ready to take his chances with the law of the jungle. So Manoj, we have the law of the jungle now, right? So now this discussion was even before Trump had actually imposed all the tariffs and all the started penalizing indiscriminately nations around the world. This discussion, the Munich conference. So Manoj, today, how do you assess India's position, and how should India play out in this emerging law of the jungle? Just give us an understanding of what you think is going to happen in 2026.
Well, you know that the point of the law of the jungle is that it is every creature for itself.
Yeah.
And so it is also every nation for itself. So we've got to look out for ourselves. There is very little room for altruism out here.
Yeah.
Earlier you could speak about the notion of strategic altruism, that you could afford to be generous with others. But today there is no room left, and so basically you have to sharply look out for your own interests.
So Manoj, in view of what you just said, how do you see India positioning itself within the global south, positioning itself in 2026 in terms of balancing its relationship with, say, with the US and with China, Russia, etc. Broadly, how should India conduct itself in BRICS, for instance? BRICS is a very important global south grouping, growing in importance, becoming more popular, getting more traction, as we saw last year in Brazil, and this year India has the presidency or chairmanship of BRICS. India is the host, and as things stand, as one surveys the overall landscape, it is becoming very clear, Manoj, that US is not just penalizing individual countries. US is penalizing groups. It's penalizing other formations in the global south, which, of course, about which Trump has made no secret. He's been saying for the last year and a half that he's going to penalize BRICS. He's going to impose higher tariffs on BRICS nations, because there is an anxiety in the US that the BRICS nations are playing an important, active, critical role in creating their own, for instance, financial architecture, creating their own trading architecture, creating their own investment architecture within the groups, and they are, for instance, they are trading in local currencies, which is not new. They are moving away from the dollar, and this obviously has caused a lot of anxiety to Trump. So do you feel that the recent action in Venezuela and now in Iran are aimed at a larger disruption, not just aimed at India or Russia or individual nations, but essentially aimed at China, which is emerging as a rallying point for many of these global south groupings?
Well, you see, the thing is that the main goal of the United States, meaning if you look at Trump, you look at what he's saying, with regard to the domestic situation in the United States, he has a feeling that the United States is declining.
Yeah.
And so all that he is doing, US domestic policies as well as international policies, are basically aimed at revitalizing the US. He has certain ideas about how that should be done. One of them, I think, is reflected in his budget, where he has drastically cut, a lot of welfare schemes. He's eliminated the US aid completely. But in the international front, he has, dumped his allies, because he says you're freeloading on us, and you must pay for your own security. Now, the problem is that the United States is basically is the primary tiger in this international jungle, and all the other countries are running scared because of this. And so you have even China playing it very cautiously. The Europeans are almost supplicant, meaning they don't even pretend to oppose Trump. And so if you look at their statement on Greenland, very, very wishy-washy kind of statement.
Yeah.
So, but if you look at the end point of Trump's actions, they are really related to the establishment or the shoring up of US hegemony. Because
that of course, yeah.
see,
So,
no matter what he says, see, for example, he made a lot of noise about the United Nations organizations. He left various organizations.
yeah.
But he has been careful not to leave the UN Security Council. He has been
Yeah.
careful not to leave the UN itself. So all the elements of US hegemony are very much there. Likewise, he may get NATO to spend more. He doesn't want. He stopped spending on Ukraine, but at the same time, the US has maintained its leadership of NATO, and even in the Far East, in the Indo-Pacific, he has maintained through the instrument of tariffs. He has pushed Japan and South Korea to make huge investment commitments to the United States. So the end goal that Trump has is somehow I should refurbish US hegemony around the world. It's not isolationism. Many people think it's isolationism. I don't think so. He's very much committed to Europe, but he's committed to Europe by saying, I won't pay for it. You know, he's committed to the Far East. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Manoj, I want to come in here with a. It's quite obvious, as you said, that Trump wants to reestablish U.S. hegemony. But do you think that all the outcome of all the actions he's taking will result in further strengthening of the U.S. hegemony? Because there is a view among American economists and geo strategists that all his actions may end up producing the opposite effect. For instance, all that he's doing with tariffs and with unilateral sanctions against Iran, Venezuela, will further create erosion of the dollar as a leading reserve currency, which there's already a decline happening because a lot of world central banks are now stocking up on gold. There is data to show that the central bank holding of gold is more than US Treasury bills, and the massive increase in gold holdings, and the exorbitant privilege, as they say, of the US dollar is eroding. Now, Trump wants to reverse that, but do you think that his actions against Venezuela or against, say, Iran or against Iran's other trading partners like China, India, UAE, will actually result in further strengthening of the dollar's hegemony? I mean, there are a lot of doubts about that. And mind you, another thing, Manoj, I want to ask you. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, recently publicly said that the American objective in seizing Venezuela is not to get Venezuela's oil. It is basically primarily to deny energy to China, because even there's a hidden anxiety that China is racing ahead in the artificial intelligence development race with the US, and China's energy strategy over the last decade or more has really worked wonders, and it is energy supply is a very important layer in the AI development stack. So China is way ahead by consensus of any other country in regard to this input to artificial intelligence. So when you look at all these things together, how do you see, number one, how do you see the outcome of what Trump is doing? And number two, how do you see India positioning itself in this big fight between the two elephants?
Well, you see, the thing is that the issue of the dollar is important. So one of the reasons for taking control of Venezuelan oil has been the dollar, because the Venezuelans were trading outside the dollar regime.
Plus, yeah, they were paying they were getting yuans from China, and China is
Yes,
the
you
biggest
see,
importer of Venezuelan oil.
it was importing 80% of the oil. So the oil and dollar are linked.
Yeah.
And so but what has happened is that the United States comes at a point in global politics where it has a favorable wind. In the sense, in Venezuela, you have a public which actually wanted change.
Yeah.
So you've not had an uprising, you've not had an upsurge against what the US has done as yet. In Iran also, there has been anger at the mullah regime. See? So the anger is not against the United States, meaning in the old days, there used to be anger against the United States. So what I'm saying is that Trump finds himself in a situation where people are going to him and saying, please intervene.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is a remarkable situation for the Americans, because we used to always say Americans shouldn't intervene. You see?
Yeah.
And here is the president who's saying, no, I don't want to. The people can look after their own security. I don't want to intervene. So his positioning that way in global politics has been quite effective. Especially with the global South. Everyone is looking at him. They are looking at him. They have been affected by what he's doing. Now you look at this whole business that he has cancelled immigrant visa to 75 countries. Most of them are of the global South.
Yeah.
See?
Okay.
So the United States is earlier used to mix its policies by mixing hard power and soft power. Yeah. So they would talk of democracy, they would talk of human rights, etc., along with hard power. Yeah. But right now, under the Trump administration, it's exclusive hard power. And that hard power, the world is being very careful because they don't want to be in the wrong end of that stick. He's wielding the stick very effectively. Now, countries like India, that is why India, after the whole Sindoor, Operation Sindoor issue, Trump's outreach to Pakistan, India has been cautious, and I think it was important for India to be cautious because running headlong into Trump would not have been a particularly good idea, because India has a lot structurally. India has a lot to gain from the United States. Technology, finance, FDI, geopolitical support, etc. So what I'm saying is that the government has been very cautious. They have not reacted to many of the Trump provocations. All his claims about Operation Sindoor and his tariffs on India, his threatened additional tariffs. You see, in Trump's calculation, India doesn't really count for much.
Yeah.
In Trump's calculation, it's hard power, meaning either you have money or you have military muscle.
Yeah.
Now, India has resources, India has military, but we are not at the point where we have exportable surplus of military power.
Yeah.
We don't have exportable surplus of money. So for that reason, I think India's caution, I think, is a good idea, and there is no point running headlong into Trump. And as evidence has shown, that what works with Trump has been flattery.
Yeah.
Meaning it's absolutely, it may be a strange thing to say, but it is a fact. Meaning you flatter Trump and things work for you. Here's a guy who says that, you can give me the Nobel Prize. He's telling the Nobel Prize winner, you can give it to me because I want it. You see? So there is a certain childish element out there.
Yeah. But Manoj, it's also true that that in a sense, India is also hedging. If you notice, ever since Trump started really putting, high tariffs, essentially Trump has been punishing has punished India much more than any other country. Most other countries have done a deal with Trump. India is the only one which stands out, has not been able to do a deal. Obviously, we don't know, things are not very transparent. These negotiations, we don't know what's going on. It's very clear that there are some very serious sticking points which have not been able to, which India, both sides have not been able to resolve. In the meanwhile, India is also showing signs of hedging away from America. They recent moves to open up to China. A week ago, there was this news that India is now letting China into all the big government to participate in tenders, Indian government tenders. In India, government is the biggest spender. And there's news that India might open up to China on foreign direct investment also, which was virtually banned via Press Note 3. And the Chinese delegation, Communist Party delegation, I think that was a big optics there, meeting BJP leaders, meeting RSS leadership. So while you're right that India need not, take on Trump headlong, India is also looking at other options. So in that context, how do you see Indian geopolitical positioning from here on? See, you must have noticed that in the sanctions against Iran, Manoj, most of the nations are BRICS nations. The biggest trading partners of Iran are China, UAE. Both are part of BRICS. And Trump, the US has imposed very punishing tariffs on Brazil. It is imposing a lot of sanctions, additional sanctions on Russia. So the picture that emerges is all the major BRICS nations are at the receiving end. And so in this, where do you see India positioning itself? Is India going to hedge in 2026? India is going to be is hosting the BRICS summit of leaders. So how are things going to pan out? I'm more interested in understanding that.
Well, you see, for one thing, let me say about China, the shift with regard to China predated Trump. In the economic survey, if you remember, of 2024, of the economic survey, was it 2024, 2025?
No, it was last year. Yeah.
Last year, okay, 2025. That made it very clear that
it was a survey for 24-25 released in
yeah. So what I'm saying is that the goal was very clear. The authors of the economic survey had basically said either India needs Chinese foreign direct investment or India should be into Chinese supply chains. China remains a major trade partner, probably the largest trade partner of India. And
also technology. The economic survey said we need both investment and technology. Yeah.
You see, what has happened in the last 5 years, the thing is that there is such rapid change in China that in the last 5 years, China has emerged as a major technology nation. Yeah. There are a number of technologies, electrical vehicles being the obvious ones. And then, of course, there are a whole lot of renewables and things like that, pharmaceuticals, where China has emerged as a major figure. And this has happened in a very short time.
Probably a decade, yeah.
See, the 14th five-year plan, the Chinese had laid this out, that this is what they plan to do. And now they are starting their 15th five-year plan. So already in that five-year plan, they have achieved the targets that they had set out. So for India, I think the path is obvious, meaning that if you, and we have tried the PLI scheme, the PLI scheme didn't quite work as it was intended, and that you cannot actually emerge as a major manufacturing nation unless and until you have some tie-up with China.
Yeah.
And it is not just a matter of having the facilities and having importing the machinery. It's also the question of process. The Chinese have a lot to teach you about how process works. You see, look at the iPhone. Earlier the Chinese used to get $7 out of an iPhone. You see, they used to manufacture some. They used to just put it together, stamp it, and send it out. Now Chinese are manufacturing many parts of it. See? So the point I'm trying to make is there is a certain point. In fact, what I would say is that for India, China offers a very good option in terms of hedging. It's a very good option. And then we are also members of BRICS. We are members of SCO. So India has made it very clear that hedging is definitely part of its strategy. It has no intention of going to one or the other side of this global system, because now this global system which America is defining, the earlier global system, the United States used to talk of partnership with countries. See, but today that language of partnership is gone. You're basically a subordinate. You see, that is what the hard power United States has done. It has abandoned the soft power part of it. The soft power would say we are fellow democracies, we are fellow so and so, but now all that business, the fellow business is over. You see?
True.
So India doesn't have too many choices. And I think the path that we are taking, the cautious path of working with China, working with the BRICS, is I would say the only path, because the other path would lead you into subordination. You would have to follow orders from Washington DC.
True. This is exactly, Manoj, what you're saying is something that Vladimir Putin had also remarked. He had said that if India is firmly part of this, the Global South bloc, the BRICS, SCO, etc., then India will be able to preserve its self-respect. So I think he used the word self-respect. So Manoj, I completely take your point. So you're saying that given the way America is behaving now, where it does not want partnerships, it wants to dictate, India should engage more deeply with the Global South via these groupings, as you said, BRICS, SCO, etc. And India should hedge its bets. Now, interestingly, one thing that you said strikes me as important. You said India should also now, while hedging its bets, should become active part of the supply chain from China, since China is also emerging as a leader in AI, and India also wants to. At the moment, we only hear about India, linking up with the US in the AI development metrics. So you are suggesting that we should also keep China in the play while developing our AI industry. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, the thing is that in AI, even today, the US remains the leader. But the US has this unique thing that it establishes a technology, but the use of that technology, the Chinese are masters. I mean, look at the iPhone. Look at the iPhone. iPhone is a US breakthrough, you see? The US has made the various breakthroughs in AI, So I think the best, when we started out this discussion, we spoke of the law of the jungle. We are in that jungle. We have to take what is there for ourselves, if it's available in the US, take it. If it's available in China, take it. So you have to have a policy of naked self-interest, is my point of view. But you have to plan it out. As I said, if you want to become a manufacturing nation, there are things you need from China. If you want to set up those industries, you need US technology and FDI. You see, and there are links. The Indian diaspora in the US is a very valuable resource
Yeah.
of engineers and management specialists, which can benefit us.
Yeah.
So the US still remains a formidable force in the world, and the US is now moving towards reasserting its hegemony in a much more frank manner.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, you got to watch out for that, because you don't want to run into the US needlessly. So, I think we need to follow a policy of hedging to a certain extent, and also, as I said, because we started this discussion by talking of the law of the jungle. So, in the jungle, you got to look out for yourself.
Yeah. So, Manoj, what you say is that India should actively also build partnerships. The Indian corporate sector should build partnership with the Chinese companies in the years ahead, just as it is building partnership with the US corporations, right? So it should be playing with both.
Yes.
In this law of the jungle, right? So,
but we are doing
wherever Indian interests are benefiting, we should go that way, isn't it?
But we are doing that. For example, BYD has come to India.
Yeah.
You see?
No, but it's not happening. Manoj, I'd like to interrupt here. While the Indian government says exactly what you're saying, that we will look out for our self-interest and we'll partner with anybody who helps India, but in reality, that is not happening, because the Chinese Indian policy still has put a lot of hurdles in the way of Chinese investments into India, Chinese technology into India. We still seem to be under some sort of pressure from the Americans, who do not want us to engage with China on the technology front. And this was articulated by Jake Sullivan, who said India should have a exclusive technology corridor under Biden. He said exclusive technology corridor with America, which would include green technologies, which would include semiconductor chips. But that situation, Manoj, seems to be changing. Jake Sullivan said this about a year and a half, 2 years ago. But now, given China's rapid development, as we see in future technologies, even the CEO of NVIDIA, the biggest chip maker in the US, Juan Jensen, he's also on record. I've heard him say his videos where he says that China is just nanoseconds behind the US in development of future technologies, and in some aspects China is way ahead. For instance, energy capacity, they're way ahead. And he said in OpenAI models application, China is way ahead. US is ahead in advanced chip technologies, the large language models, as they say. But he says China is catching up there also. They are probably some months behind. Huawei is developing some very cutting edge semiconductor chips, and China even refused to. US had imposed export controls of chips into China, and recently they tried to offer China advanced chips. China refused. China says that they're building their own ecosystem. See, that's the level of confidence that China has. So what I'm suggesting is that given this emerging scenario, the US is also subtly trying to, though they're not doing it very openly, sometimes they also do it openly. They are trying to create this technology cold war where they want the US to be the leading, engine for future technologies. Whereas China, in reality, China is running, shoulder to shoulder with them. So that leaves people like India and other countries the difficult choice. If you're saying law of the jungle, the choice should be wherever we are benefiting, we should go. So how do you see that playing out? The American, because US unilateralism, Manoj, is now quite naked, as you see. So if they start forcing nations of global south, say BRIC nations, to not to align with China or partner China in future technologies, how will that play out?
You see, the thing is that let there be no doubt that the key global equation is the strategic competition between China and the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything is linked to that. Now, the question is, in this strategic competition, how do we assure our self-interest? I mean, this strategic competition is there between the two of them. They will try. Even the Chinese, for example, there are certain technologies Chinese will not make available to us.
Yeah.
Because they will jealously. So once you reach that level, you become very jealous about your technology and you don't transfer it. So it is up to us. And there are ways, for example, there's a lot of talk as to how China stole technology from the US and China forced the US. But actually, that's an overstatement. What the Chinese have done is focused hard work in those areas. Today, one area which China is notably weak is supposed to be aero engines.
Yeah.
But today, China has got about 5 aero engine projects going on simultaneously.
Yeah.
At the cutting edge. So what I'm trying to say is that it is the effort. And when you talk about India, the biggest challenge really is the Indian bureaucracy. India is so bureaucratized a nation that the stumbles are, it's not ideology so much as bureaucracy. That the bureaucracy tends to block, common sense areas, common sense interests, or they tend to distort them. So I think what India really needs to do, there are two things. One is the domestic political leadership that is needed for that transformation. And I don't see it as yet. I don't see that they even recognize that challenge. The second thing is that our domestic political culture has reached a point where freebies have become more important than anything. So where is the investable money?
Yeah.
If all your
so basically you're saying so
I'm saying it's a holistic thing. You have to take it's not just technology, it's not just one particular thing. It's a whole ecosystem that you have to create, and there we need that leadership. That political leadership in any system is extremely important, and I don't yet see that political leadership in this government.
So Manoj, that's a very critical point. So that's exactly what I was getting at. As you said, if last year's economic survey, if a year ago the economic survey had clearly stated that India needs to open up to China, needs to bring foreign investment and technologies from China to fuel Indian manufacturing, why has it not happened till date? Why is it that press note 3, the ban on in the sense every Chinese investment being scrutinized under press note 3, being put on non-automatic list, negative list, why hasn't that been lifted? It's been a whole year. So you're suggesting that at the policy level, the government, the leadership is also a bit confused. It's not laying down a clear pathway in this law of the jungle. In this jungle, they are pretty slow to respond to the needs of the country. Is that what you're suggesting at the policy level, at the leadership level? Yeah.
Or to provide that leadership. Meaning, that leadership is a path. You have to be singularly focused. Meaning, whoever is doing it, if you look at the present government, there's not a single area in which you can say that this is what we have achieved. Here's the smart cities, here they are. Or in 10 years, here is this new institution which will transform our AI. Or,
So Manoj, you're right. So would you characterize this as a general failure of the Modi government in the last 10 years in creating a strong geopolitical, geo-economic positioning for India? I mean, there's been a lot of optics. There's been no dearth of narrative building, optics, Vishwaguru, etc., etc. But you're suggesting that on the ground, we don't see that leadership bringing a kind of cohesive geopolitical approach, cohesive policy approach, cohesive benefits on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Meaning that is the problem. And as I said, part of the problem is not because of the BJP government or the Modi government. Part of the problem is the electoral system. I mean, see, I've just been looking at the electoral system, the Bombay Municipal Council elections, been giveaways. There are people giving away stuff. Now,
Yeah.
if you're giving away stuff, and likewise in elections, or in, let us say, in Bihar, you get 10,000 rupees per person. So the Indian fiscal system has become thoroughly distorted. So you are not able to accumulate the kind of money you need for massive investments.
Yeah.
But
Manoj.
that is the weakness of our democracy. Our democracy is functioning as what Modi himself used to talk about, Revdi. You see, now Revdi has become the currency of Indian politics.
Yeah. There's a hypocrisy there because Modi himself, his party has been the biggest distributor of Revdis. Yeah. Also, Manoj, one last point. While the Indian the political leadership has been woefully lacking in providing a proper direction in this emerging geopolitical, geo-economic disruption that we are seeing globally. We also see that the Indian private sector seems to have failed the system by not investing in R&D. Like the Indian corporate sector investment in R&D is woefully short of what other countries like South Korea, Taiwan, China, Germany, other Western countries they provide. And R&D, if you don't invest in R&D, you don't invest in the future. And India's R&D to GDP ratio is 0.6%, which is very, very, very pathetic, I would say. And one single company in China, for instance, Huawei, spent more on R&D in year 23-24 than all of Indian corporate sector put together. So who do you blame for that? Is it the corporate sector, or is it the policy leadership or the political leadership? Yeah.
Well, I think in this case it's the corporate sector, because the corporate sector is basically using easy profit. So if you can sell a brand of hair oil and make money, do that. So they make easy money. Now this is where the politics comes in. The politicians have to provide policy options and policy directions which will force them along a certain channel. For example, you could, you look at the CCI, the Competition Commission. It has failed woefully in the case of Indigo.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a very successful company, but the successful company becomes too successful and everything comes crashing down.
Yeah.
You see? So what I'm saying is there are failures of policy, failures of leadership. And that's why I go back to leadership. In the Modi cabinet, I mean, you may have someone like Jaishankar, who I think has provided very good leadership. And given the geopolitical circumstances that he confronts, he has been able to mark out India's territory without any serious problems, and also give India a certain defining profile. But in many of the other ministries, I don't see anything.
Yeah, but to be fair, you're right. But to be fair, even Jaishankar has been pretty constrained by the larger leadership, the political leadership that this government has generally been providing, or not providing enough. I'm not sure whether you can separate Jaishankar from the larger failures. Since he's part of the cabinet, part of the government. But I take your general point that there is a lack of leadership at the political level, maybe at the level of business, elite businesses. I think they need to come together, put their heads together, and really work out a very clear direction for India to deal with the law of the jungle, as it were, as Jaishankar described. Thank you very much, Manoj, for talking to us, and let's hope 2026, gives us some clarity on what direction India takes in its positioning in the broader environment, geopolitical environment. Thank you very much.